Today, as I mentioned, we're going to go over how we can turn your AI into a sales agent with Seamless MCP. So, typically, you're used to those sales agents and AI agents for chatting, and we're going to introduce how you can do that and expand on that a little bit as well. So diving in here, I'm going to start off at a pretty high level. So what's an MCP server? If you've joined this webinar, you probably have some sense of what MCP is. It stands for Model Context Protocol. That doesn't really, explain too much, but essentially an MCP server is a standardized and secure connector that allows AI to access data and perform actions in other applications. So you can connect it into Claude, into ChatGPT or OpenAI, and utilize tools against other platforms like Seamless. So MCP is a shared universal bridge for tools across AI and LLMs, kind of like a shared language, so it knows how to operate. And why it matters is that it allows you to interact with various tools, like I said, through the web, through simple natural language workflows. Historically, software has been restricted to user experience inside of a platform. And now you can leverage a lot of that tools and functionality outside of a platform, which I'll show here in a little bit. And it removes that kind of user interface requirement. So it allows you to kind of be more conversational. You can focus on outcomes and goals rather than kind of clicks and interactions and having to figure out how to utilize a specific platform. And one of the biggest benefits of MCP2 is it is a shared language, as I said earlier, that most of the industry has adopted. So Anthropic created MCP, I believe, close to 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half ago. But they created this protocol, and everybody has kind of adopted this as a standard model. So that way, all agents, even OpenAI and other AI tools, know how to use it as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is essentially taking you from a chat interface to action-oriented chats as well. So historically, AI was kind of a smarter search tool. So write me an email, tell me who I should prospect, help build me a list, some of those types of individual things. This is helping layer on it as a sales operator. So it's not just standalone. It allows you to execute capabilities within AI. So you can search, research, organize, engage, and highlighting some of what Seamless can do here as that full capable workflow and not just kind of an individual feature list of one-off things. So the first thing that it's kind of first and foremost giving Seamless is a B2B sales tool. We have our ability to discover contacts. So you can search contacts, companies by title, seniority, industry size, revenue, technology, really everything that you can do within the Seamless platform. You can now do within the Seamless MCP via Claude, via GPT, via these other tools like N8N, if you have other workflow tools we're plugged into. You can then research those tools. So you can enrich a short list of contacts. You can identify the best contacts from a list that you research, get their verified emails, their phones, their contact phones, more details. One of the nice things to reference here, though, is that that first stage search is not using research credits. The second stage, once you research that, will consume those credits. So you can pull back a list of, say, 100 contacts, which I'll demo here shortly. And then you can say, okay, find me the best 25. And then once you find the best 25, you can review those and say, okay, let's research those. That's going to use those research credits. And then you can organize those into lists. You can then build campaigns using our Connect tooling to create steps, to create templates, to create a draft and tasks, and then send emails. And then you can utilize either our MCP to send those emails directly, or you can then engage within the Seamless platform as well and kind of track those steps, review all that there. So you have the ability to use kind of this UI, AI balance between the two, where you can build it out in AI, you can have that visibility of kind of a classic SaaS platform within the Seamless platform. And then you can also use AI to measure how your campaigns are doing. You can ask it which campaigns you have live, what the metrics are on those campaigns, but that gives you the ability to kind of do this full circle life cycle from discover all the way down to measure, utilizing the Seamless MCP. And again, I'll show you that here in a minute. But one of the biggest things I want to focus on here today is not necessarily just explaining what MCP is and kind of how it works within Seamless, but how to most effectively prompt using MCP, and how to get the most out of our MCP tools. So some of the biggest things is you should present it with a goal, what you're looking for. You should present it what your ICP is, given we are a B2B lead generation tool. What's your ideal contact profile? Who are you searching for? Are there any constraints associated to that? And then what actions do you want it to take? And it's best to start and actually kind of chain these things together instead of having one mega prompt. We want to make sure that we have multiple prompts in row so you can kind of review those and have that human in the loop interaction. As I'll leave you with this webinar, I'll leave you with some best practices, but that's kind of one of the best practices is that human in the loop. So I'll take this right here, and actually I'm going to jump out of the presentation here for a moment to kind of show you some of these things. So we'll start with the Seamless platform. So if you're familiar with Seamless, you've likely seen this before. This is our natural language search that we've introduced a couple months ago. So you saw there kind of that initial starter prompt. You can start with an initial prompt. I'm going to go ahead and drop in, find 100 VPs of sales at software companies with 200 to 100 or 200 to 1,000 employees. So we'll go ahead and search that. So this is going through all of Seamless and searching, and it found roughly 6,000 contacts. And you can come over here in natural language search within Seamless and see, you can see actually a lot of these I've already researched. So some of these are already coming back with information. If I haven't researched them, I can click this find button and research those. This is sort of that classic user experience that Seamless offers. On the left, you can see your filters. You can come in here, modify those filters as you want. So nice, clean, kind of standard way to do it with a classic user experience. Research those, take that next step, build campaigns from this. We have a lot of information in our education portal as well. If you want to learn a little bit more about using kind of the classic Seamless interface, you can do that through our training, and we have various webinars as well there. But I'm going to focus a little bit today around using the Seamless MCP and kind of going that route and how that works. So I'm going to take the same prompt and jump into our chats here. So you can see actually I've already done a couple of chats with this, but down here we have plugins. So I'll highlight real quickly that we are in a couple of platforms already as native plugins. So we're in ChatGPT. If you go to plugins here on the left, all you have to do is click plugins, search Seamless, and we are automatically in there. This will get you set up. You go through a couple of quick approvals, and it'll share which tools have access to what, so that way you make sure kind of you're managing your permissioning. There's the ability to also set an approval step. If you want to have it approved before it does anything like research contacts, you can do that as well. But you can see I already have that plugin installed. So I'm going to go ahead and select that plugin. So you can see here, we'll have Seamless popped up, and we'll go ahead and find 100 VPs of sales in software companies with 2,000 to 1,000 employees. And we'll go ahead and click search. So that is going to go through and it's going to research using the Seamless tools. You can see it thinking here. It's going to go ahead and use the tools within Seamless to find those contacts. The nice thing too is that as you're going through using the MCP in these platforms, it's going to kind of explain what it's doing along the way. So software, a lot of the stuff is hidden. You know, you're only getting the tip of the iceberg. Most of kind of the transactions and things are happening behind the scenes. But this is actually going to kind of give you updates on sort of what it's doing. So found 100 prospects in Seamless, VP seniority in sales, gives you a little bit. Search return 6,068 results. As you can see here, same thing, search return 6,068 results. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take that a step further. So that's my first step. I found 100 contacts, and I found more contacts than that, obviously. But I'll go back in here and we'll say, okay, find me the 25 best matches from this search. So that's going to go in and it's going to use additional information. And the nice thing about having this plugged into AI, GPT, Claude, whatever that might be, is it can utilize additional intelligence that it has. So it's the power of Seamless plus the power of AI, and you sort of can partner with it along the way, give it more context along the way. That's why I recommend taking these things and doing it in a step-by-step basis, where Generally in software, you like to do it all for you, but in this, it's often best to kind of walk through it in a step-by-step basis. You'll have various different use cases, and it will be able to handle all those different things. And oftentimes, especially on the search side of things, as I mentioned, one of the best things to do is just get in there and start using it. If you have access to GPT, integrate that plugin, start using it, start testing it out, and just give it a couple of samples. And if you ever run into any errors or bugs, obviously let us know. We did just launch and roll out the MCP, so if we do hit any bugs or any snags along the way, we will make sure that we get those addressed immediately. But this gives you a good sense of, how you can kind of take this a step further. And now you see, okay, it's ranked the 25 strongest. And so that's giving you even more intelligence on top of that. And so you can see all kind of the details, firmographic, persona details associated to that as well. But then going back into presentation here, what I'd recommend is, excuse me, you then can take that. And so I just, as I mentioned there, found the 25 best matches from this search, and then you can take that a step further. And oftentimes Claude and GPT will give you kind of prodding because it knows all the tools, it knows all the capabilities of Seamless. It'll say, okay, would you like to do X, Y, or Z? Would you like to draft an outbound email campaign? So the next step in that chain would be draft a personalized outbound email campaign for these contacts in Seamless. Show me my best performing campaigns and engagement as you're kind of getting into things. So the big lesson here is don't tell the AI which buttons to click, as I mentioned earlier. It's not, hey, go do this for me, go run this quick thing, go click this button. Tell it the business outcomes you want, tell it what you want it to accomplish, and then you can kind of chain those prompts together and guide it along the way. Using that kind of combination of here's what I want, but also here's what I want to get out of it is a great way to utilize MCPs, whether it's with Seamless or with other MCPs. And I will later in this webinar also show you how to chain together MCPs. So Seamless plus CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, your email, your Slack, your Google Calendar, a lot of those types of things. So this unlocks a lot of the capabilities of kind of workflow enhancements within Seamless that I know the platform has some of those capabilities, but it also doesn't have some capabilities in terms of like workflow building and automation. So this actually unlocks a lot of those and gives it to you in a really clean and simple natural language format. So I'm going to go through a couple of steps here about building a prospect list from a single sentence and then prompting that and steering it more so you can build a list. And we'll keep it kind of simple and high level here, but I'll go ahead and answer questions too here momentarily. But before I do that, actually, I did see some questions coming through. Can I do this with Gemini? So yes, you can do it with Gemini. That is a great question. There is not a native integration with Gemini yet, so we do not have a plugin. We're actually in the process, probably in Q3, maybe Q4, of getting a formal plugin with Gemini. But you can use our MCP in any platform that allows you to integrate an MCP. So while we're waiting on Claude, I'll show you an example of what it looks like to have an MCP integrated that doesn't exactly have a plugin yet. But in our API documentation, and actually in our application, in settings, there is a section called MCP. If you click on the setup button within that, and I'll show you that here later in this webinar too, it'll take you into our MCP setup that'll explain to you how you can use our MCP in any tool that accepts and adopts MCP frameworks, which Gemini does as well. For Microsoft Copilot 365, I believe that is as well. I don't claim to be an expert across every tool that has MCPs, but most major software at this point does have MCP capabilities. As I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, MCP has been kind of a universally adopted protocol, although it was invented by Anthropic. The market has since kind of adopted this as the general standard. So most companies and most major software platforms, CRMs, email platforms, whatever you might be, integrate with MCPs and accept those when other companies have an MCP server. Let's see. Okay, so there's another question too that I think is a good one. So the question I'll read out loud is Seamless Connector has been set up by my company. When I select Connect Seamless and approve within Claude, the message I get is MCP access requires a public API license. So that is a great question. We currently within the platform require admins and owners to be able to provide API access, and MCP uses API access, so it's kind of a permissioning thing. So I'd recommend on that front, reach out to our CS team. Always, if you run into a bug, that's the first thing to do is either approach our chat and go into that directly, or reach out, submit a ticket to our CS team. We can make sure that everybody that needs access has access via MCP. We did just roll out an update where it should open that up to more users. So let me formalize that with my team. But I'd say the best thing to do in that scenario, or in any scenario, honestly, if you run into an issue with Seamless, is reach out to our CS team via chat or via an email, and we'll make sure we get taken care of right away. MCP is obviously like a new and exciting thing, so we are working to make sure we prioritize some of those issues as well. So we'll get those taken care of. All right. Is there a way to download into a CSV file all the leads without going into a CRM directly? So there is. That's another great question here, and I'm just making sure I get through some of these questions before we take our next step. Within CRMs, they also, many of them have MCPs as well. So if you have the ability to connect like HubSpot or your Salesforce or whatever that is into AI, a Claude, GPT, whatever that might be. Oftentimes you can download those. There is permission levels that MCPs also follow. They follow permissions of kind of what you can do within your CRM, so it can't really bypass that. But it can oftentimes pull back that data. And I'll show you some of the other examples too of kind of how you can use MCPs in chains and pairs. Is you could even go and say, hey, find me contacts that are missing phone data in my HubSpot, and then go enrich those within Seamless. And you can do that all within this singular chat environment in Claude or AI. And we're seeing even just the early beta adoption of our customers really, really enjoying the fact that they can kind of do all these via just simple chats. And last question before I move on to this is, our company has its own chat GPT so that our information is protected. What we need to do to allow it to connect to Seamless AI so that our information is not shared with the world. So we don't include the information that we pull back within the AI when you connect it. It doesn't go in to train our data on the MCP side of things. So as I mentioned, there's a set of permissions that you can allow. All MCPs, they basically have little toggles that'll say like just allow blanket permission or allow only request access on some of these things. So if you have any questions, you can definitely check out some of our kind of security documentation. That would really help too. But we are not using data to train our data and making sure that that is moving forward related to like the MCP and using that within chat. All right. So actually here, let me jump back out of this. So I'm going to go in and show you an example of how to kind of chain a couple of these things together beyond just the search. I showed you the search, and obviously jumping back into Seamless too, just real quick, is we have all of these functionalities. So we have the ability to search contacts or companies. We have the ability to search with intent using intent topics. We have the ability to enrich from a list, my contacts, my companies, and now within this last year, we've introduced our connect or our campaigns functionality. So you can create tasks, you can create campaigns, multi-step campaigns. You can track all that activity as well in here. So it's great that we have all this user experience and those that are leveraging the platform. We're getting some really great feedback, and we're continuously making optimizations on our connect functionality. But one of the biggest benefits here is that creates tools. So that creates tools now that our MCP can use to create campaigns, to create content, to create templates. And so I'm going to show you an example of using GPT and using the plugin that exists and how you do that. So we'll jump in here to a new chat. I'll select the plugin here as well. I have two here just so you know, because I have an older MCP connection that I had set up before I added the plugin as well, obviously from testing. So that's why you see two icons there. But you can also see here, just for reference, the HubSpot icon. So I'll show you an example of how you can use Seamless plus HubSpot here in a few moments. So for Seamless, find 20 VPs or heads of marketing at software companies with 200 to 100 or 1,000 employees. So again, similar starting out, finding contacts. You can obviously do as many as you want. Um, I generally prefer to do it in smaller batches, and I'd recommend that. I think it's a best practice is like utilizing a little bit smaller batches, especially as you're getting comfortable with this and kind of getting familiar with how the MCP works, because then you're not going to burn credits kind of getting used to it and getting familiar with it. And then you can, of course, kind of expand beyond that once you build that out. And one of the next tier things, probably won't get to too much in this, is you can build automated skills. And so once you have an idea of what you want to do, you can build a skill for that. And that skill can be based off of triggers and things like that. So you can really build an entire kind of workflow automation system within this. But you can see it's going to go through, it's going to find matches. So all of that information with the associated company sizes, that's going to scroll down, share me all that information as well. But I'm going to jump back in here. And then here's an example of kind of something you can do as a step further. If you're really looking to kind of hone in on that research, you can then say, okay, great, that's awesome. And once this finishes here, and obviously that's, I'm sure all you familiar with AI. Once you get that, that's kind of when it's finished. So which 10 look like the strongest prospects and why? So I can ask it a little bit more of a probing question. So find me the 10 and find me and tell me why those happen to be the strongest prospects. Okay. So there you go. Gives you use cases around how this works, why they look strong, and those 10. So then from here, I can go in and say, okay, research these 10. I'll tell it seamless there just to cover my bases, make sure. So that'll go through and now research those 10 contacts in Seamless. So again, what that's doing is it's kind of going through, it's utilizing our research, making sure you have those credits available. The enriched batch is ready, 10 requested. It gives you a little bit more information as well too. So I have an approval step in place here. Do you approve to research all 10? Because as I mentioned, the credits are what utilize. So I have, 78,949 credits within Seamless available. So do you approve researching these 10? Whoops, sorry. Not that. Yes, so approved. And I did see a question come in. Can you go over how credits are used for this? So I'll go ahead and cover that while that's going through and thinking. If you're familiar with the Seamless platform, which I realize some of you may not be, but Seamless, the starter parts of Seamless, kind of the search and research, focus on two areas. They focus on finding contacts and then researching those leads. So the researching step is what consumes those credits. So clicking the find button here, every single time I click find, that's researching a credit within Seamless. So going through and researching those credits. So, I returned an error on that one. Uh-oh. So that returned error on that one for some reason. So I might have already had, actually, you know what? I bet it is because I already had these contacts in my, so let me research a different set of contacts here because I think I already have these found in my research. So let's go through. Start a new chat here. All right. So we'll start with a net new research there. But yeah, just to make sure, again, that's clear on the credit side of things. As you research a contact, so I'll go back up here and cover Discover. No research credits used here on the Discover side, so that'll pull back those contacts. And then you say, okay, I want to research these credits. It'll research those credits. Obviously, as you saw, if there's an error that comes back, if those contacts are already in your contact list, those won't use credits, so you won't have to worry about those credits being consumed. But we'll go ahead and showcase that. All right, so the initial query returned 4,168 matches. I'll tighten the role criteria. Final 100 are actually on target. So you can see there it actually evolves and uses some of that agentic mindset along the way. And it says, hey, found these. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up a little bit. So again, the benefit of using Seamless plus AI and those working in conjunction together will allow you to move a little bit smoother here. All right, so found 100 qualified prospects after reviewing the results. And then you can see here, no reveal credits were consumed. And so I'm going to go ahead and just say, all right, let's see if this one works. Research 10 of these contacts in Seamless. It was definitely working yesterday, so we'll see. The curse of the demo potentially might be what's going on here if this doesn't work for some reason. But as you go in here, you should see this working. And again, if not, what I would do in this scenario is I would submit a ticket, or I'd go into our chat and I would let our CS team know that we're having issues, and our team will jump right on that. So let's see how it works. All right. So just as a reminder too, as this is going through, if you do have any more questions, some great questions has come in. And I think I've hit most of those, just as that's doing, oh, goodness, a seamless error. So let's see. Okay. For some reason that errored out. So again, the curse of the demo here is it is erroring out as I'm attempting to do these. So what I'll go ahead and do though is I will show you an example of what it did before when we were testing this out. So of course I'll go back with our team and take a look here, but I'll show you an example of kind of what this looked like. Let's see, find an example. All right, so I'm going to show you a full campaign here. But this is if I didn't receive an error, what it would look like and kind of how that would work. So find 100 VPs of sales at Seamless software companies with 200 to 1,000 employees. So it'll come back, found 100 prospects out of those 6,068 matches. I ranked 100 and it gave me back those ranked. And then I say research those leads. It went in, researched those leads, and utilized the credits from what I had after approval. Successfully approved that research. So it used those, completed, approved the research. And then I took that a step further. So I'll go ahead and show you again what I did here is jumping in. And so going through those 10, I said, okay, now create me a campaign based off of these as well. So you can then fully, let me jump back into the one I was in. Where was that one? I think it was this one. Okay. Which of those 10s look like the 10 strongest prospect? Is that the one I was in? That wasn't the one I was in. Sorry. It was this one. Here we go. Approved campaign. So you can see, actually, I'll jump back in here, draft a personalized outbound email campaign for these contacts in Seamless. So found those 25, researched those 25. Now I said draft a personalized outbound email campaign for those 25. So it named it VP of Sales Software August 2026. So it automatically did that. It utilized me as the sender as I already had that connected. So I had all those tools individually connected. It added personalization for dynamic variables within there as well, as Seamless allows you to set up templates for that. And so it shows you an example of a couple of these emails. And so here's kind of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So creating these in Seamless, approved the campaign, created that full campaign as well. Again, you have those approval steps that pop in, and I'll show you an example of what that looks like, within our campaign. So here is that VP of Sales software 201 to 1,000. August 2026. So I click in that, and you can see here's the 25 contacts. I have started that campaign already. So before it'll actually give you the opportunity to go through review, and then you can start the campaign automatically. But I went through and started that campaign. So you can see what this one looks like. This automatically created. I contact first name and went through that. And you can see fills in those company names with the variables. Um, it tracks at the top here as you jump into these. So I could leverage this in AI as well, and I could do some of these things in AI. But as I mentioned, I like to utilize a little bit of a hybrid approach where like I will trigger some things in AI, I'll set some stuff up in AI, but there's some really clean, simple ways to leverage Seamless within our platform that I like utilizing, just the classic traditional software experience. And so I generally jump between the two, but you can see I have all these tasks that have been set up with due dates based off of starting my campaign. I have the contacts that I then used AI and my GPT connection to research and shows activity as anything happens throughout the campaign. So these are scheduled to be set up. I have this as a manual email too. So how I would do this within Seamless is you see these are all 25 contacts, 25 due. So I would click on 25 due. And this really simple, clean, kind of 3-panel connect screen that we call it. So this is how I would then go ahead and execute those campaigns. I'm not going to do it right now just because this is live data. And so I generally want to make sure that we're, sending legitimate emails to people and not demo emails. So I would go through, I would review these, and you can customize any of this. The blue is where those dynamic variables are. So those won't show up in blue. If you want to see what that actually would look like, you can actually send a test email to yourself so you can see what that would look like. But this would be sending to John Adable, who's Vice President of Sales at digital.ai. So I could review that, customize it as I see fit. I can see my activity over here on this right side too. So as I start engaging with this contact or this set of contacts, I'm going to see that activity coming back in so I can review that really cleanly here. And then I'd send that out. And so I'd go through, click send, go to the next one, click send. You can see these are all changing, also named John, but at NetCore, so Vice President of Sales West at NetCore, I can customize as I see fit there. If I want to further go into a little bit more detail, I can also review, I can use this AI functionality. So this has full context of John and who he is, what company he works at. So I can actually get a little more information directly as I'm kind of going through my research about John, use that to either create a new set of content or just to further kind of customize my research with content. So as I go through, I can utilize that functionality. If I want to really be detailed, I can jump in, learn a little bit more about Stephanie, leverage the AI for that as well. I can utilize a couple different channels for that, models for that. And then if I want to go back to Stephanie, I just click back in here. I can get all that information. In case you didn't already know this, because I know Connect is fairly new, so we just rolled some of this out, but you have the ability to add notes. Like I said, you can track activity. If there's a specific task I want to add, I can add tasks directly from here. I can create tasks so I can do kind of follow-ups, schedule dates with that too. Use this kind of as a task management system, but I can do all that as well. But generally what you'd be doing within your campaign is like kind of quickly going through, customizing as you see fit, and then sending out those emails. But as I mentioned, you can leverage the AI assistant there if you want to. But as you go ahead and do that, you'll see that these will then jump. When I finish this one, it'll jump into my next one. And then upon day 4, so 4 days from when I completed this step then will come into play, and I would have this easily set up, and I could run through as soon as these are due, click start on anyone that has a due date that's today or past, and I could get rolling on those too and easily get those follow-ups. From here, you also have the ability, as I mentioned, to track activity. So I don't have any activity here yet, but I can see those that replied. I can see those that were sent, those that bounced. I can quickly filter down by those too by clicking in this top navigation here. I can also filter by outbound and inbound. So outbound means I sent that out and am basically awaiting a reply. So it's sent out by me. Inbound means somebody replied to me. So as soon as I send out an email, I will then be waiting for essentially them to get the ball back into my court and let me know, hey, I'm interested. If not, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll send out a campaign and I will really closely track this inbound because that signals to me that they've replied to me and I need to follow up in some way. So a lot of what our users are doing with these campaigns is they're really fishing for kind of those signals of interest. And then once they get those signals of interest, they're going in there and you can actually adjust your contact as well. I know I'm getting a little bit beyond the concept of MCP right now, but related. So I figured I'd do a little bit of training here on how kind of the system as a whole works. So I can click into Jeff Wahlberg here and you can see I can manage my contacts here. So I have them connected into a list. I have them, if I have default lists set up, I can integrate them into my CRM, which, as I mentioned earlier, you can actually do this via the MCP as well. I can also manage their contact status. So let's say they come back to me and they're interested. I can set up a rule where if somebody replies, I automatically flag them as interested. So you can actually set that up in the Connect settings, but I can come in here and I can manually flag that as well. So I can flag the interested, and then I could go ahead and create campaigns based off of my interested contacts, or I could create campaigns based off of a few other things as well. So that allows you to kind of manage your contacts within Seamless and utilizing Connect as well as kind of a hybrid approach to Seamless plus your MCP. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here for a minute and go through some of the questions because I see a couple more pop up. Let's see, can you name your search and put it in a new list in Seamless and then send it to HubSpot? So that's a great question. And actually, we do have a feature that is about to roll out, I believe, this week. So we have over 50 different tools and functions that our MCP, when working, if I don't run into errors, it can do within Seamless. And one of those that we're actually adding this week is to be able to attach contacts into a list. So you can actually create lists within Seamless via our tooling. But one of the things that we realized in our early beta stages of rolling this out, since it's been open for about a week or two now, we've had the MCP rolled out there. One of the first things we saw is that connecting the contacts into a list, we ran into an issue there. There was a disconnect. So we're rolling that out. So you'll be able to, again, going back to that question, search, put in a list name, attach those to Seamless, and then send them to HubSpot. You can do those as long as you have the connector set up. You can do those all within the Seamless MCP. And actually integrations, as long as your integration is set up, you should be able to do that directly within the Seamless MCP as well. I would recommend, if you are a HubSpot user, if you have the ability and permissions to be able to connect that HubSpot MCP as well. So that way you can have really that full visibility, because Seamless has capabilities of looking and kind of deduplicating against your CRM, but HubSpot's going to have even more MCP connection tools that you could leverage there. So using those MCPs in conjunction is actually a great thing to do. As I mentioned, I tested earlier and was able to find contacts that are missing certain pieces of information, enrich those with Seamless, and then push those directly into my HubSpot account. So that's something you can do with the two Seamless and HubSpot MCPs connected. Let's see. Curious how something like this could tie into an AI scoring model. I'm building one right now that scores prospects on signals like funding, news, company size, and industry fit. Could a plugin like this feed into that kind of pipeline? Absolutely, it could. So we have a couple of a couple of customers that we're working with right now who are kind of building us as a part of a waterfall, I would say. So you may, whoever asked this question, have some different vendors that you're using or some different technologies. It's kind of pulling this AI scoring model in. But if you go into the Seamless MCP, which I'll go ahead and highlight right here, is you'll be able to see all of the different tools for, so actually, I'm going to jump into the MCP connector. So here I mentioned earlier that the MCP is over here on the left nav. So if you go into either, you can click in the left nav and there's this integrate button that has the API, MCP, webhooks, or integrations, but you can click right into the MCP. And so here's a lot of different things that it can do. So it can find and enrich, it can build and save lists, it can spot job changes, it can launch outreach, it can send in logged activity. So like the find and enrich could definitely become a part of that AI score. And if you go into the documents for MCP, you can see all the different tooling that we have access to. As I mentioned, we have, I think, 50, where are we at now? 54 MCP tools that you can connect across. So you can see all the different functionality that it can do here as you go through this documentation. And this will give you also, this is in our API documentation as well. So docs.seamless.ai. And this will give you a lot of what you can do within Seamless, within the MCP, within the API as well. If you want to use the API directly, those are things you can do there as well. So let's see. Go through a couple. Do we still need to use Zapier to connect to Anthropic? No. So you don't need to use Zapier to connect to Anthropic either. And again, I'll go back to this documentation guide as well. There are different references you can use here to install into various tools. So here's our quick start. Going back here, it shows you kind of the steps. So add the server, authorize, run a search, and this will guide you through how to set these up. mcp.seamless.api/mcp is our MCP server technically. So if you go into some of those other tools, this will walk you through how you can set that up in Claude, and you don't need Zapier to connect those two. You do need the API key set up, so you will have to go into Seamless and make sure you have an API key set up, and I'll highlight that here. So OAuth, you can see here, I have an MCP, a couple of MCP tests. You'll set up that key or have your admin set up a key potentially if need be. And that'll also be used alongside that MCP server URL. So this one right here. And again, if you go through the documentation, this will take you through setup around how you can set this up across Claude, across N8N, across any other tools that you might want that MCP server set up. However, I will mention that I said earlier, we have a native integration with with ChatGPT. We have a native integration with N8N. We are waiting on, and if everything works out effectively, we should by the end of this week, into next week potentially, have a native integration with Claude as well. We're actually in contact and we're in review right now with Claude. So as soon as that gets approved, we should have a native integration with them as well. So you just need to go into their plugins. But for right now, again, this will take you through a couple of steps, but you just go through your settings. It'll take you through how you set those up and add this extension via the MCP route, which will allow you to do this as well. All right, so let's see. Using the combination, can information that isn't in Seamless be found for lists that have been created in Seamless? If any email bounces, do we get a credit back, whether we go through Seamless or through our own company email? So the credit back functionality does work through Seamless. I'll start with that first question. So if you use Seamless, we will provide credits back for any researched, any emails that come back as invalid. So once you research contacts within Seamless, if they come back as invalid, we'll automatically refund that credit. We actually have a Q3 roadmap item too that should be out, I would say, in the month of September to refund bounced emails specifically within Seamless. But if you use the Seamless tooling, we will refund that information. If you don't use the Seamless connections, we don't have visibility as much into that. That we don't refund credits for. But if you use Seamless tooling and you integrate via the MCP and use that to send, or via the actual Connect technology, we will then refund that once that email refund update goes into place, which I mentioned is an active Q4 item that we're working on. And then the first question there, using the combination, can information that isn't in Seamless be found for lists that have been created in Seamless? Yes. So you can use additional information just like the GPT and Claude and all those have access to the web. You can take Seamless information, enrich it with additional information, whether you have MCPs connected. The reason Seamless is super valuable in this front is because you won't get contact information. You can get some general firmographic information from GPT and Claude just naturally from it pulling from the web, but you won't get the depth of company firmographic information without Seamless connected, and you will not get contact information without Seamless connected. It does not go into those levels. We have a proprietary system to be able to provide contact information for our users, for emails, for phones. And so if you ever tried that within Claude just natively, it's going to say, sorry, I can't give you that information. As soon as you can connect Seamless, that will give you that information. But then the rest of the universe, let's say I pull back a list of contacts and say, hey, give me some additional information on X, Y, and Z. I could either pull that from the internet that Claude or a GPT or whoever else might know, if it's kind of public information, which is generally where those companies are getting their data, or you could connect an MCP server to another data source of some kind and pull it all together. It generally works best when it's used in conjunction with multiple tools. Okay, so does the MCP work for the free version of ChatGPT? Yes, it does. So that's another thing that's great is you don't have to have a paid version of ChatGPT. Obviously, it's going to restrict you based off of what you can do within that version and the amount of kind of tokens and volumes you have there. But yes, it can connect within that. I want to integrate N8N with Seamless for automation. Can we generate personalized emails in N8N for all contacts associated with a campaign? And then have the campaign automatically send those emails personalized in N8N. Yes, you can as well. So I think I don't know that I have that. So let me see, N8N Seamless plugin. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a plugin automatically with N8N already set up. So you can go ahead and build your node, or sorry, I should say node. We have a node set up with N8N. So you can go ahead and use this. It, just like ChatGPT, has access to those 54 tools, and we're going to be continuously adding. I think we have another 20 or 30 in our next API version that'll be available in the next probably month or so of additional functionality. So just click here, get started. That will allow you to do a lot of this functionality and set up that full workflow. So great question related to N8N too, because not everybody on this demo may be familiar with N8N. I know Claude, GPT, Gemini, those are all kind of the base models that people are familiar with from an AI perspective. But there's a lot of great tools like N8N that allows you to set up different workflows. And so with Seamless having a node, you can set up different workflows and you can connect different tools together through kind of a visual workflow builder. And it has that same connection into all of those different tools. Let's see. So when the Claude connector comes out, do we need to remove the MCP connection? I don't believe you do. I generally would recommend that. It's because sometimes then it's going to jump back between the two. So it shouldn't double charge you or anything like that, but it's going to generally just use one. It's not going to use both. The MCP connection has essentially the same functionality as the plugin will have in Claude, but I would recommend once you get that set up, I would go ahead and just remove the MCP connection and just go straight up native with that, just because it seems to operate effectively there on that front. Obviously, today with the error that I ran into on the research step, not so much, but we'll go ahead and get that taken care of. Went on Claude, under connector, my company, Seamless AI connector is listed, but then there's an error, public AI license, or maybe API license, that might be. So that's another one that I mentioned. I think I referenced that earlier, but the API had historically been kind of a private API where users would need permission. We recently opened that up to be a full public API. But we have permissions in there for owners and admins of an organization have needed to have access to that API because we just wanted to make sure that like not everybody was using it. But we're also starting to open that up too, so we have more of a global license across an organization. I would say submit a ticket to our CS team with that if you are running into that issue. Sounds like more than one person has run into that public API license issue. So submit a ticket to our CS team, and coming out of this, I'll make sure that I work with our team to ensure any of those get addressed, especially coming from those of you on this webinar, and ensure those get taken care of. All right, so continuously moving forward here, we're coming up, got about I'd say, we'll try to get through this in the next 10 minutes or so. But we will share these out as well. But these are things that I think are some of the best things you can do with Seamless and the MCP. So territory builder. So you can build me a target account list for my new Midwest territory. That's an example of something you can do. Again, referencing one of the questions is, using terms like Midwest territory or my new Midwest territory. You can append it with additional information and say, hey, these are my 4 states or 5 states, or this is my specific territory. AI is going to know even more detail potentially than Seamless knows about some of those territories. You can give it additional appended information. You can attach documents. You can do whatever you need to do. I'm sure everybody's really familiar with, the power of using these AI tools. But essentially what this does is it just layers on Seamless's research and search capabilities to be able to leverage even more information that these AI tools don't have access to, like contact information. So you can build a target account list for your territory, give it as much information as you need. As I mentioned, you can find 50 prospects, researching, matching our ICP. You can give it more information around what your ICP is even, and research the top 20. So that way, you can focus your research on the ones that you only want to focus on. Find additional VP C-level contacts at specific accounts. You can give it an account list and say, hey, find me additional contacts at this level, or round out my my ICP on these contacts. Campaign builder, you can take specific audiences, again, enrich it with additional information. You can build an outbound campaign around specific pain points, and then show me my campaigns, engagement, and open tasks. Which should I focus on? So you can actually say, hey, these are all my campaigns, or it'll know the campaigns you already have if you're just using that within Seamless. So it knows all that, and it can provide you back information around how those campaigns are doing. Is, hey, you have 3 campaigns active, you have 12 replies from this campaign, you have 2 replies from this campaign, whatever that might be. I'd recommend we continue to double down on this campaign and then build off of that. Again, as I mentioned, some best practices are just iterate those workflows. So the 5 rules for prompting Seamless is, first and foremost, give context, not just commands. So tell the AI what you're selling, who buys it, and why. The more context you can provide, I think, as you're familiar with AI, which again, I believe most of you probably are, you realize that the more context you can provide, the better. Be specific about your ICP, so give it specific information. The more specific you can be, the better, because that will tighten your targets as well, and it'll use that information then to go and trigger the tooling within Seamless. Search before you research, so narrow your audience, and then spend those research credits on the prospects that you want. Use those iterative workflows, so search, inspect, refine, research, act. You can iterate on that as well. And again, as you're getting comfortable and familiar with this too, use that in a small batch and then expand from there. And then keep humans at the key decision points. So especially before large outreach or anything kind of that could be, I'd call it destructive, anything that could have any negative implications. Make sure that you have humans intervention at that step too. And that's where, again, that human intervention step between the UI and the AI is a nice ability to kind of jump between the two, because then you can say, okay, find me these contacts, build me this campaign, set up these templates, and then you jump into Seamless. You can review that campaign specifically, and you can then kind of go through and customize those step by step. As I showed here. So a nice ability to be able to kind of use that human in the loop. So the human in the loop can be done entirely in the AI, or it can be done specifically within those key decision points in the platform as well. And so the next thing too to add, and again, the best way to work through these is just sort of test it out on your end. If you do run into any issues like I did earlier in this webinar, reach out to us. We have a team fully focusing on the MCP since this is new and just rolling out, and we'll get those taken care of. We're prioritizing this to make sure people can have success early stages, but MCP chaining too. We can't control the other MCPs, and so if you connect HubSpot, obviously we have no control over what HubSpot can provide or can't provide, but it'll allow you to do certain things. So like Seamless plus your CRM. So you can connect with HubSpot, Salesforce, most major CRMs, even mid CRMs should probably have MCPs that are pretty capable by now. But you can find contacts matching an MCP or an ICP from Seamless. You can deduplicate those against your CRM, which you can do in Seamless as well, but the CRM is going to give you even a larger purview if you have that connected. You can enrich those incomplete records and say, hey, find me those that are missing X, Y, and Z fields, and enrich those with Seamless. You can identify missing buyer committee roles, create update records after they get approved if you want to integrate it into a workflow. And as I mentioned earlier, we have people that are building skills out for this where a trigger will come in via HubSpot. You'll get a lead. It'll identify that it's missing two core fields from the lead form or that you want to further enrich. It then enriches that automatically and it then pushes that data through to Seamless. So you can create these workflows and chains via using these multiple MCPs put together. You can do it via Seamless plus email as well. So Gmail, Outlook, Superhuman, whatever you might want to do there. So you can have that read and access some of that correspondence. It can generate outreach, but it can also do things like schedule follow-ups. You can integrate some of that data with your CRM activity as well. Some of the most fun stuff doing here is just kind of playing around with it. And as you have these tools integrated, seeing kind of what you can do with what. The Seamless plus your calendar connector is a really powerful one as well. So you can prepare briefs before a sales call. You can say, you have your calendar connected. You can say, hey, find me all the contacts based on their emails that I have in my calendar this week and write me a pitch brief for each of those. And it can automatically do that. It can utilize further information from Seamless as well. It can give you additional stakeholders from Seamless, pulling back that information. And you can use that to kind of add additional people to your meetings as they're coming up. So as you prep for it, you can do some additional outreach beyond the person you're talking to. And then Seamless for Slack or Teams. We all know that, either Slack or Teams are pretty much pervasive across anybody working on the internet now. So you can have leads funneling in through a channel, and you can then enrich or further prospect those leads. You can route things through Slack as they come through. You can give managers approval steps as they go through some of these as well, utilizing Slack in some of those campaigns. So a lot of really fun things you can do here. And then just kind of the bigger vision ultimately of sort of where Seamless is going, as I know we're trying to keep this to about an hour or so, from an operating model, kind of an operating software to kind of stating your outcomes. So again, we are continuously working on building this out within our MCP, but traditional software, you have kind of your sales rep working with the UI that is then kind of collaborating with the sales tools. And then you have the API plus your MCP. So the rep working with AI plus those sales tools. And so now you have MCP, and that's integrating all of those. And so looking to kind of go more goal oriented, and just a kind of a sneak peek behind the curtain of the Seamless platform as well is our goal is to move you from that kind of initial action orientation to goal orientation. So starting with your goal, telling the AI agent what you want, Seamless then being able to enrich and provide that additional information, and then you end up with that outcome. So it's not that Seamless, that AI can now access Seamless. It's that you can actually start with that outcome, work with AI a little bit, tell it what you want, and then it can, as necessary along the way, integrate Seamless data in there as well. So again, if I leave you with anything, I'll leave you with kind of this one thing is, as we start to head into sort of this new frontier where MCPs are enabling all of this information across the web, stop asking AI to tell you how to do sales work, which is typically how we do it now. It's like, hey, how should I do this? What should I do? And then you go off and do it. Now it's give it the tools to help you do the work or to do the work for you as well. So MCP is a connector with Seamless, with HubSpot, with Slack, with all these other tools. As you integrate all of these tools together, you can actually go from you being the person handling the workflow to Seamless and all of the other tools and MCPs being able to handle the workflow for you, and you just support AI along the way. So the last thing I'll leave with you is our key resources for using MCP with Seamless. And so we'll share this out as well, but you can access these via the Seamless system pretty easily, at least the first couple. So the MCP access, if you go into our settings, as I mentioned here, I'll jump into our settings. You can get to the top right little icon here. We'll take you right into our settings. Or as I mentioned in the left here, you have this integrate button, API MCP. So you can click right into the MCP, and you have, you can see that my tool is connected here as well. So you can do it that way. You can then jump into the setup docs as well, clicking here, clicking down here. That'll take you right into that documentation. So both of these links are accessible right from that page in your Seamless account. OpenAI ChatGPT plugin, I mentioned that earlier, is in the settings. So I'll just go ahead and click right in here. That'll take you right into the seamless connection. I already have this connected, of course, but if I didn't, I would click there and it would go through my permissions and make sure everything was set up properly. The N8N plugin, which I already showed as well, is available. The Claude plugin is coming very soon, and I know someone referenced Gemini too, so that is on the list. We'll see what we can do to expedite that, and get that out in the next quarter or so. But as you have additional requests or want to see Seamless native or have plugins and additional tools, let us know. Follow up with our CS team. We are logging all this to make sure we get all this taken care of. And as I mentioned, this is new. So as MCP gets rolled out, if you have any trouble with it, if you have any errors, again, as I mentioned, the one I had here today, please let us know. Our team is on the spot getting knocked these out right away. So we'll get that error that I saw today taken care of immediately. Anything that you might run into, let us know. The public API access errors, we'll work with you guys to make sure that those get situated as well. But hopefully this was helpful. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Not that I can see. Cruz, Victoria, John, I know you guys are kind of been helping out. Any other questions that you guys have seen come up? Let's see. Okay, so will Seamless, here's the one I saw John ask. Will Seamless MCP remember input about my business through ChatGPT so I don't have to re-enter the same information every time? For example, I'm staffing. Yes. So if you're using ChatGPT, ChatGPT has history and memory, and so it's going to remember all that as well. So I'd recommend, I do a lot of, I create projects in ChatGPT. So I'd recommend that you create a project if you're looking to utilize MCPs with Seamless and like for specific purposes. You can feed it additional information, but it's going to have access to whatever information you feed it, and it's going to retain that memory within that. So as I use ChatGPT, I've been using ChatGPT for years now, obviously, but as I use it with Seamless, it's going to know all the information about me, what I do, what my company does, what Seamless does, and so it fully customizes it that way as well. So that's a great question. Copilot plugin coming. That's another one I know we have on the roadmap as well. I'll have to check on where we're at. There's a couple additional ones. As I mentioned, the Claude plugin is coming very soon. In the next 1 to 2 weeks, we should be in a good place with Claude, and hopefully that plugin will be live. Gemini, hopefully in Q3 we can get Gemini live as well. I'll look into the Microsoft Copilot plugin as well. We're looking at additional options like Cursor and a few of those others too. Because I know there's a lot of benefit to even some of those dev-specific tools and being able to get data into Seamless or into those tools from Seamless. All right. I think that's it. So I know, like I said, trying to keep this to about an hour here. Appreciate everybody joining.